Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, a show about the incredible people dedicated to helping those who've experienced trauma. My name is Guy McPherson, and my mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to inspire each of us to help those around us. You ready? Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back. I am very excited to have back Jacquie Compton. Jacquie, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. So lovely.
Awesome. So Jacquie has worked in the field of trauma and the violence against women sector in Toronto for over 11 years, beginning her career in the Caribbean with women and children who experience violence. She spent over 5 years as an art therapist at the YWCA Toronto's Breakthrough Program, and she's worked at the Barbra Schlifer Commemorative Clinic for the past 5 years. At the clinic, she's held such roles as therapist advocate, manager, and director of counseling services, where she led staff and developed innovative trauma programs. Jacquie teaches at the Toronto Art Therapy Institute and is a trainer with the Sensorimotor Psychotherapy Institute. Jacquie, welcome back. We're very excited you're here.
Yeah, great to be here.
Look, last time I talked to you, I got off the call and I was like, gotta have this person back. You know, just loved your energy, your passion. And even before we were doing the interview here, I asked you what you'd been working on, and you said you do a lot of work around who the therapist is, and I love that. We're going to get into that, but before we do, remind our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Yes, so I grew up on the island of St. Lucia, and I now live in Toronto, Canada. Yeah. Okay.
Now, forgive my innocence. Where is that island?
That is in the Caribbean, in the West Indies. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start off here. For those listeners, maybe who didn't catch the first interview, give us bring us up to speed. How did you get into this field?
Yeah. Well, I started off exploring and studying art therapy. So I was really curious about other ways that transcend language, other ways of expression. And so for me, that really also brought this beautiful, loving relationship to understanding our soma and working in somatics and working with the body, and just the beautiful layers of dialogue that can emerge through creative expression, that it's like there's an aliveness to it. And it's always been of interest to me. So I grew up with a family of artists, and I always was really curious about like us as humans, our stories, our layers. And so that's where I started in art therapy, and now also doing somatics. So doing sensorimotor, which is like my love for sure. Yeah.
So this interest and passion for art and everything around it, in a sense, how did the desire to work as a therapist, how did that come into play?
Yeah. Ever since I was a teenager, I knew I sort of wanted to do something around understanding folks and understanding stories and getting into the depths of that. And so I knew that I wanted to study some form of psychotherapy, and I didn't know it was going to be art therapy, but I'm so glad it was, because it opened up another avenue that wasn't rigid, that was really dynamic. And that's what moved me into really wanting to do trauma work, to find other ways of processing and other ways that have a felt sense of collaboration. There's something about art making. It's like folks are going to go where they need to go, whether they know it consciously or unconsciously. And so there can be a gentle push within, but it doesn't we don't need to know or make meaning of what's happening before we like sit in that therapy chair. The process is how the meaning emerges, and maybe that new meaning that's more in alignment with what we desire, you know?
Where did this love, in a sense, for understanding us as humans come from? Our stories, how did that emerge?
Ever since I was a little girl. And I would say like um it started in nature. It started with my imagination. And I think also just like lived experiences of trauma. But there's just so much mystery and awe in our world and universe that I was also just so in awe of us as humans, like us as earthlings, and just really a desire and longing to explore and get to know and be impacted by people's stories and support folks and maybe getting to know theirs and the story that's like really in alignment with who they long to be.
Mm, that I mean that's so vital.
Yeah.
Not just for, I think, us, for humans, but for working with people who've been impacted by trauma. Your, where you're coming from, your approach, it feels like it's a very seasoned approach. It feels like it's born out of a lot of experience. I mean, obviously, you're a young woman, this feels to me like you've had years and decades of experience, and you realize that it's not just interventions and the importance of interventions and technique and knowledge, but it's so much of it working and engaging and healing is about the relationship. We just born like this?
I know. Well, like when I think about it now, and I've been like practicing for like almost like 18 years, and I'm still feel still so like curious and sort of like always wanting to learn, and I learn every day, and I get pulled by different like ways of thinking, but that word attunement, I remember when I first like actually understood it. And when I say understood it, I like felt it, like the feeling of it,
Mm-hmm.
feeling of attunement, hearing it, like smelling it almost.
Would it define attunement for us?
Yeah. So for me, it has many different layers. So I feel like it comes from these waters of this ancient wisdom that's inherent in all of us, that place of being connected maybe to histories that we embody. And it holds a quality of presence, a being with. And I think of it as music, that it has a harmony and it also knows how to harmonize. And so there's like a tuning in. So like attunement, when I think about it, it's like that tuning in is a being with, like being with other. And attuned, like the connection is not just like, okay, I hear what the person's saying and I understand and I acknowledge,
Mm-hmm.
yes, cognitively, yes, but that it's a being with, and it's a feeling and a trusting in allowing what is unfolding in the dynamic, in the moment, in the relationship, whatever that is, whether that's with nature or others, that there's this beautiful cultivation of relationship happening, that we're feeling each other, that we're with one another, and we don't know what's going to happen or unfold, but there's a trusting in it. And so that attunement for me, like, is another language too of feeling into the layers of what someone's saying, the layers of what their bodies are saying. And I think that was something that I was connected to at a really young age.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, right. It's something that maybe I didn't really question it because it was just my way of being. But now I'm like, oh, there's this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember studying this thing and I was like, what is that? But it's not going to make full sense because it transcends language.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an experience. But that attunement is now for me connected to, I would say, newer ways of practicing where the therapist can reveal and maybe show up in their authenticity, in their authentic self, that they are impacted, that they are part of. And I think that's a part of attunement. I kind of think about like, what would that be like to have therapists sitting in chair and client lying on couch and not having that in that relation.
Mm-hmm. It's the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
It's don't go near that.
Don't go near that.
Okay. So, when did you realize, or when did you say to yourself, I want to work with people who've experienced trauma? Because that's a heavy thing.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it is. There's no question about it.
Yeah. So when I was studying art therapy, we had a course with like, okay, so where do you want to do your placements? Where do you want to do your practicum, your internships? And I was like, okay, I think I want to work with women, maybe children. That was like my thought. I was like thinking like that. And then I had an interview for, actually, I was a student at the Barbra Schlifer Clinic. That's where I did one of my practicums. So doing an art therapy group, a trauma group. And I was interviewed for it. The night before this interview, I went to a social action project opening. And it was those that identified as women share their story through ceramics, through clay. So it was a 12-week group, and they moved through this group very intensely to share their story and then to share it with the public. So they did these amazing, wondrous pieces. And the opening night, they shared song, dance, maybe just presented, their artist statement, and it was incredible. And that evening, I'm standing in this gallery, and this woman comes up to start sharing a piece of her story and her journey of working with the clay. And it felt like a boulder was thrown right into my gut, like heavy. And then, like, I think my hearing went. I think my colleague's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I think I'm going to faint." He takes me outside, and I was like, "I can't do that work. There's no way. Like, I can't even like stand here in this space. I'm feeling too much." Wow. I was like, "I can't do this. There's no way I can do trauma work. No way." So the next morning, I go to my interview, ready and prepared to tell, my supervisor that I'm like, I don't know if I'm really need to do this interview because I don't think this is a good idea. This is what happened to me. And she said, "Oh, you are exactly where you're meant to be. This is for you. This is the right work." And I was like, "Oh my God." Okay. But it was just the way she said it. And she's now a dear friend of mine. The way she said it, I was like, "Oh no, I have to do this." Because my fear was I'm feeling too much. And then it was like, "Oh, you need to get to know this feeling too much. You sort of just got to, learn about it so that you can figure out how to really connect with it." It's kind of like I think of Storm from X-Men. So superheroes. Storm has the ability to control weather.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she first connects with this ability, when she gets angry, there's like a tornado. Or if something happens, it's like, "Oh no." It's like, "Oh no, I didn't mean to." But then in time, she got to really understand her her own language and her gift. And I'm so glad that I got to understand my own language and ways I connect and tune into the world.
Man,
This thing called attunement,
That's an amazing story. I mean, just it's funny because when you said, you felt this giant boulder come crashing into your gut, I thought you were going to say, and but at that point I realized this is my thing. But you were like, no, I needed to get out of there. I can't handle this.
Yeah.
But wow, that is so amazing. And that supervisor, she sounds amazing too, to be able to recognize that in you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so lucky to have this most incredible mentor, supervisor, now friend. Because it actually, and this is how I teach trauma now, it's like trauma doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to hurt all the time when we're doing that work. It doesn't have to like go through extreme pain. I think about a lot of my clients are like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. There's like a bracing and it's like, oof, like I feel like that's such a prescribed understanding of trauma. And yes, it is so hard. And it is like out of this world, experiences that people have, that we have as humans. But also the work is, I don't even know. It's so deeply powerful and connects us to like our humanness, because we are all a part of that. We have all in some way experienced trauma, whether it's directly or collectively. It's a part of our humanness. And so I always tell my students, like, I have such a joy of trauma work, because there's ways that it can be accessible and make sense and not feel overwhelming or re-traumatizing, that it can actually be expansive and
be specific, because I think our listeners, some listeners may be thinking, come on, Jacquie, maybe for you, but not for me. When you say be specific, what are some of those ways that it can be maybe more expansive or liberating?
I think that's through avenues that go beyond language. I think it's through avenues that go beyond just our cognition or our emotions. It's like really leaning into the wholeness of our experiences and understanding and getting to know the profound magic of our bodies, like its abilities and ways we can give space for that to be processed. Like our trauma response in our bodies, like that experience of being stuck in an arousal state is so incredibly painful and overwhelming. And it's not something we can talk our way out of. It's not something that we can talk our way out of that state. We can understand that, but it's getting to maybe through other experiences. That's why I think about like art and movement and working with the body to allow actions that didn't get to happen to be completed, experiences that were missed to be met, where new information can unfold. Like the magic of our bodies is that it has such an impulse naturally to evolve and grow, expand. And when that gets truncated, it's painful, because there's a knowing of like, wait a minute, there's something else that wants to happen here, but it's just not happening. And like, that's often like, for me, in my experience, that's often like where the pain comes from, because it's like, there's this thing that wants to happen, but it can't. And like, how am I going to make this thing happen? But we can't think of it because we have to let that, my favorite thing, like that organicity of things unfold, and getting to know what our organicity is. And it kind of goes back to that experience that I had where I was like, I can't do this, like that intensity. because I was feeling too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually really scary to feel into our aliveness when it's been maybe protected for so long. Because then we're going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling is intense, no matter what feeling it is. I think in sessions with clients, it's like, we get to that place where it's like an experience of joy. And it's like, oh. And then it's like, oh, this joy is overwhelming. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. So it's like, let's find, the volume that's sustainable and nourishing just for this moment, for now. You always think it has to be big, It's like
Mm-hmm.
extreme joy or like, extreme calm. It's like that's so like can just be so decentering, But it's like, oh, like what? It's nourishing today, for now, in this moment. And then in time, like, that can shift and change. Like some days, like you're like, yeah, you want a big breakfast, and other days you're like, just like, oh, just want this. And that's how we are. It's like what's within our desired nourishment and capacity right here, right now, this moment, today, you know.
Let me
Yeah.
remind everyone I'm speaking with Jacquie Compton. Her website is thegroundedheart.com. So, as we kind of wind down here, we have time, but as we kind of move into the latter part of this discussion, you said something earlier that I want to talk about, and you said you really value how we, meaning therapists, show up, and you work in that space a lot. Talk to us about that. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. Oh, it's beginning to mean so much. And it's funny because it's rooted in an experience I had in doing my placement. So like there's always like, when you first start, it's like, oh, okay, yes, that makes sense. And so I'm having like a session with a client, and she says to me, can you just stop therapizing me? And can you just be a real human being? Okay. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, be myself. And that was so profound for me. Can you
Yeah.
stop
Wow.
therapizing me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just be a human being? Can you just be you?
That's amazing that that client said that. That's
It was so
awesome.
incredible
Yeah.
because I was so scared to get it wrong, not do it right. There's like all these biases and assumptions of how I thought I needed to be. And so something that I, for myself, and then share with others, like in supervisions and consultations, is the curiosity of like, who are you being? Who am I being? And is it in alignment with how I desire to be in this world? And with that, what's your ethos? What are your principles? What do you value? What is your work rooted in? And what do you care about? And getting curious about that moment by moment and how I'm showing up with my client. And that Jacquie, me, therapist, is going to be the same Jacquie as mama, as daughter, as instructor, as artist, as student, as, like I'm not going to be any different sitting with my clients than I am with that person that is partner or mother or friend.
Why explain to us why that is so important? Because I'm thinking maybe some people are listening saying, well, but I am different when I'm with my when I'm with my clients. I'm a professional.
Yeah.
I'm right. I'm a therapist or coach or whatever. What do you say to that?
I say yes, but are you showing up in your authenticity? are you able to be grounded in and rooted in your own vulnerability? Because when we experience those enactments or that transference that's inevitable in all relationships, but they really show up in that therapy space. So we're like tuned into that. It's going to require us to be vulnerable, to be open. For me to be open, I have to show up as me so I can be impacted by my client, because that's going to give me some information. Now, do I share like details of my story when a client's sharing something and I'm like, oh, I know that story. Me too. Me too.
Right.
Me too. You know, I'd be like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But I might say something like, yeah, as you speak right now, my heart really, my heart feels heavy with yours. What happens when you hear me say that? So it's not like I'm sharing, you know, the details of this heavy heart that's happening right here, right now as clients speaking, but it's like in relationship. It's like, yeah, what happens for you? You know, sometimes there's tears that roll down my face as client shares. And it's there, it's explicit.
Mm-hmm.
And I share, you know, as you speak, I am moved to tears. What's that like for you to notice right here, right now? You're really here with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So this subject is it for me.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
It's for many reasons. And we could do a whole other episode on this, but do you offer supervision for other therapists?
Yeah.
Consultation rather for other therapists?
Yeah.
You
Consultations. Yeah. We do groups. We do individual. Groups are fun because we get right in there through like working with our bodies and working through creative expression to get curious about that. Like, who am I being? You know?
Now, in your experience, what are some of the hesitancies that maybe some therapists come up against when around this topic? Because I know for me, when I first started out and I was on the track to becoming a therapist, you know, I was like, you know, you have this degree and you have all this knowledge. And what do you mean you want me to be a human being? Yes, I'm a human being, but I'm a therapist, and you know, you act this way. And
yes.
What do you experience? What do you see or notice that some therapists have when they come up against this topic?
Yeah. Relief sometimes, because I guess like to speak about like when I say ethos too, it's like it's really rooted for me in social justice work and in decolonizing therapy. So often there's like a relief because all of a sudden there's like all this information that we can get curious about that's maybe we're experiencing through our bodies. You know, it's like, yeah, I have this client and they're, you know, they're so angry, they're so resistant. And I always get curious. It's like, okay, so you experience the client as angry and you're experiencing for yourself this sense of resistance. But client isn't resistant. But you're experiencing something, you're getting some information that feels like resistance, huh? And they're like, yes, yeah, yeah. So like tuning into ourselves and getting curious about like how I'm being with an experience or like the story that's being expressed through client's body or narrative. It's like, oh, yeah, as a client's sharing, it's like I've had the same experience as theirs, so I don't know what to do with it. It's like, oh, like all of a sudden we get some information about this resistance rather than like client resistant, you know, because we're a part of this dynamic. And to separate us out, we're losing all this like really beautiful information and threads of wisdom that might be coming through us, and that we can like use that and be connected.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think about enactments, where our stories are coming up against another person's stories, those projections are happening and they're interacting unconsciously under the waters. And if we can meet those, and it's hard and it requires such vulnerability. It's like this invitation to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden it's like we go from one level in the work, and then all of a sudden we go a bit deeper.
Mm.
And then we can get comfortable with kind of maybe with curiosity, naming the implicit that might be happening in the session. That's like, there's something that's like really powerful with that. But to do that, I think it requires me to show up as me. Because then I'm going to miss out on like what's happening and hearing it. Yeah.
So you offer workshops in this?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about that. When, who? Yeah. When and who?
So I have it's a workshop like program. It's like an online kind of exploration. So folks get to do that. And then we meet live, like have these live circle sessions. And it's called Restorative Acts of Care. And the next round starts in September. And it's so fun.
And it's for therapists?
For therapists. It's for like folks that are in care professions. So there's like social workers, or there's some like somatic coaches. Yeah.
Okay. And the goal or objective for this workshop is what?
To really like deepen into skills of trauma work, but through that lens, and also deepening into cultivating relationship with their creative selves and their bodies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. All right. How do people learn about this?
They can go to my website. It's thegroundedheart.com.
Okay, thegroundedheart.com, and we'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at thetraumatherapistpodcast.com. Jacquie, come on. You are friggin' incredible. And that's why I have you back here. Love it. I'll talk to you all day about this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's so awesome.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye-bye.